Sam Rodriguez stared at his daughter's college acceptance letter, knowing he'd never earn enough on the night shift to make her dreams come true. For 15 years, the widowed mechanic had worked the lonely midnight hours at Phoenix Motors, invisible to management and forgotten by a world that valued youth over wisdom. Then came the night that changed everything. The company's 2 million prototype engine seized up just hours before the biggest investor meeting in Phoenix Motors history. While executives panicked and engineers threw up their hands, Sam quietly approached the silent machine. In 10 minutes, he fixed what others couldn't solve in hours. But what the new CEO did when she witnessed his work would shock everyone on the factory floor. Could one moment of recognition really transform a man's entire life? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The alarm clock's harsh buzz cut through the pre-dawn darkness at 6:30 a.m., but Sam Rodriguez was already awake, staring at the water stain on his bedroom ceiling. He'd been counting the cracks in that stain for 3 years now, ever since Maria died and sleep became something that happened to other people. The faint sound of Elena practicing her saxophone drifted through the thin apartment walls. She always rose early to practice before school, just like her mother used to do. Sam rolled out of bed, his 55-year-old joints protesting the movement with familiar aches. His calloused hands reached automatically for the wedding ring on his left finger, Maria's simple gold band that he'd worn beside his own since the funeral. Some mornings he forgot she was gone for those first precious seconds, expecting to smell coffee brewing and hear her humming along to Elena's music. But the silence always reminded him. The small kitchen was exactly as he'd left it 12 hours ago, spotless, because there was no one else to clean up after. He started the coffee maker, an ancient machine that Maria had bought at a garage sale 15 years back, and began preparing Elena's breakfast. 2 pieces of whole wheat toast, scrambled eggs with just a touch of cheese, and fresh orange juice squeezed from the Valencia oranges that grew in the courtyard of their apartment complex. It was the same breakfast every morning, a routine that gave structure to their fractured world. "Morning, Dad." Elena appeared in the doorway, her long black hair still damp from the shower, carrying her saxophone case and backpack. At 17, she was the perfect blend of her parents Maria's graceful features and musical talent, combined with Sam's steady determination and dark eyes. She'd grown 3 inches in the past year, and Sam sometimes caught glimpses of the woman she was becoming, brilliant and passionate and destined for things far beyond the boundaries of their small Phoenix neighborhood. "Morning, mija. Sleep okay?" Sam slid the plate across the small table, noting the shadows under her eyes. Elena had been staying up late with college applications, scholarship essays, and the part-time job at the music store that helped cover her lesson expenses. "Better than you, I think." She sat down and took a grateful sip of orange juice. "I heard you moving around at 3 a.m. again." Sam poured his coffee into the chipped mug that read, "World's Greatest Dad, a Father's Day gift from Elena when she was 8. Just thinking, the Hendersons upstairs got a new baby. Little thing cries every few hours." Elena gave him a look that said she wasn't buying the excuse, but she didn't push. They'd learned to navigate around each other's pain carefully, like dancers who knew each other's steps by heart. "I got something yesterday," Elena said quietly, reaching into her backpack. She pulled out a thick envelope with the Arizona State University logo embossed in maroon and gold. "I was going to wait, but I can't keep it to myself anymore." Sam's coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. They'd talked about college applications, had filled out the financial aid forms together, but seeing the actual letter made everything real in a way that stole his breath. "Open it," he whispered. Elena's hands trembled slightly as she tore the envelope. Her eyes scanned the letter once, twice, and then a smile broke across her face like sunrise. "I got in, Dad. Full academic consideration for the jazz performance program. They want me." The pride that swelled in Sam's chest was immediately followed by a crushing weight of reality. He knew exactly what full academic consideration meant. It was University speak for "you're smart enough, but can you pay?" The jazz program at ASU was prestigious, competitive, and expensive. Even with financial aid, they'd need at least $15,000 a year for tuition, books, and living expenses. Sam made $32,000 a year on the night shift at Phoenix Motors. After rent, groceries, Elena's saxophone lessons, and the medical bills that still trickled in from Maria's final months, they had maybe $300 in savings. $300 toward a $15,000 dream. "That's incredible, Elena. I'm so proud of you." He meant every word, even as his mind raced through impossible calculations. Maybe he could pick up overtime shifts. Maybe they could take out loans. Maybe he could sell the truck, take the bus to work. Elena was watching his face, and her smile faltered. "Dad, I know it's expensive. I've been looking at community college programs too, and there's a really good music program at Phoenix College that—" "No." The word came out sharper than he intended. "No, Miha, you're not settling for community college because of money. We'll figure it out." But even as he said it, Sam felt the familiar weight of inadequacy settling on his shoulders. Maria had always been the dreamer, the one who believed everything would work out. She'd encouraged Elena's music from the time she could hold a plastic recorder, buying second-hand sheet music and saving for months to afford a decent saxophone. Sam was the practical one, the one who worried about rent and groceries and keeping the lights on. After Maria died, he'd tried to be both parents the dreamer and the worrier, the cheerleader and the disciplinarian. Most days he felt like he was failing at both jobs. Elena reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "We'll figure it out together, Dad. Maybe I can get more scholarships or work more hours at the music store. You concentrate on school and your music. Let me worry about the money." Sam stood up and kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. "I've got to get some sleep before work tonight. You need a ride to school?" "Marcus is picking me up. We're practicing for the spring concert during lunch." Elena gathered her dishes and rinsed them in the sink, another piece of their morning routine. "Dad, thank you for everything. Mom would be proud of both of us." After Elena left for school, Sam tried to sleep, but the college letter seemed to glow from where she'd left it on the kitchen counter. He found himself calculating and recalculating, trying to make the numbers work. Even if he picked up every available overtime shift, even if he took a second job during the day, the math was unforgiving. The truth was that Sam Rodriguez had been invisible for 15 years, and invisible men didn't get raises or promotions or second chances. They got older and more tired, and eventually got replaced by younger workers who didn't require health insurance or vacation time. Phoenix Motors had been bleeding money for the past 3 years, ever since the Korean automakers had started undercutting their prices. The company that had once employed 4,000 workers now limped along with barely 1,500, and rumors of layoffs circulated constantly through the factory floor. The older workersmen like Sam, who remembered when Phoenix Motors made the best engines in the Southwest, they were the most vulnerable. Too expensive to keep, too young to retire, too old to start over somewhere else. The night shift was where dreams went to die, Sam thought as he finally drifted off to sleep. It was where men like him kept the machines running, while the important people slept soundly in their suburban homes, never thinking about the invisible hands that made their success possible. But tonight would be different. Tonight, the invisible man would be seen. At 10:30 p.m., Sam arrived at Phoenix Motors for another midnight shift. The factory sprawled across 12 acres of industrial Phoenix, a maze of corrugated metal buildings and smokestacks that had been belching steam and ambition since 1962. In the old days, the parking lot would have been full of American-made trucks and sedans. Now, it was half empty, dotted with older vehicles held together by hope and determination. Sam parked his 15-year-old Ford pickup next to Jerry Williamson's even older Chevy. Jerry was 62, a machinist who'd worked at Phoenix Motors for 38 years. He'd trained half the day shift supervisors, but they treated him like a relic now, someone who didn't understand computer-controlled machinery or just-in-time manufacturing principles. "Evening, Sam." Jerry emerged from his truck with a thermos of coffee and a lunch pail that his wife had packed with the same care she'd shown for 4 decades. "You hear about the big meeting tomorrow?" "What meeting?" "Board of directors flying in from Detroit, bringing some investors who might buy the whole operation." Jerry's weathered face was grim. "Word is they're looking to modernize everything. Probably means more layoffs." Sam felt his stomach tighten. Layoffs meant the most expendable workers would go first. The older ones, the night shift, the men whose skills couldn't be easily quantified on a spreadsheet. They walked through the employee entrance together, past the bulletin board covered with safety reminders and productivity charts. The night shift supervisor, Dave Chen, was already at his desk, looking harried as he reviewed the evening's work orders. "Rodriguez, Williamson." Dave looked up from his clipboard. "We've got a problem. The prototype in Bay 7 is acting up again. Day shift couldn't figure it out, and we need it running smooth for the investor tour tomorrow morning." Sam knew about the prototype Phoenix Motors' last desperate attempt to compete with the electric vehicle market. $2 million of cutting-edge technology and engineering designed to power a new line of hybrid luxury cars. If it worked, it might save the company. If it didn't, they'd all be looking for new jobs by Christmas. "What kind of problem?" Jerry asked. "Engine management system keeps throwing error codes. Won't start, won't even turn over. The day shift engineers ran every diagnostic they could think of. Computer says everything should be fine, but the damn thing won't budge." Sam and Jerry exchanged glances. They'd seen this before: complicated systems that looked perfect on paper, but had some small, overlooked problem that prevented them from working in the real world. The young engineers with their computer degrees often missed the simple solutions that experienced mechanics could spot immediately. "Want us to take a look?" Sam offered. "Knock yourselves out, but don't mess with anything major. We can't afford to make it worse." Bay 7 was usually reserved for the most important projects, separated from the main factory floor by soundproof glass walls. The prototype sat under bright fluorescent lights like a mechanical patient in an operating room. It was beautiful. Sam had to admit, sleek silver body panels surrounding an engine that looked more like a sculpture than a machine. Hybrid electric and gasoline systems integrated so seamlessly that it was hard to tell where one ended and the other began. 3-day shift engineers stood around the prototype, looking frustrated and defeated. They'd been there since 6 a.m., running diagnostic after diagnostic, replacing components that the computer said might be faulty. Nothing had worked. "Any luck?" Jerry asked. Tom Phillips, the lead engineer, shook his head. "It's like the engine management system is in some kind of loop. Everything tests fine individually, but when we try to start the integrated system, it just dies. No error messages, no feedback. It's like the computer can't see the engine at all." Sam walked slowly around the prototype, his experienced eyes taking in details that the computer diagnostics might miss. The engine was a masterpiece of modern engineering, but it was still an engine: pistons and cylinders and fuel lines and electrical connections, just more sophisticated than the ones he'd been working on for 30 years. "Mind if I listen to it?" Sam asked. Tom shrugged. "Be my guest. We've tried everything else." Sam leaned over the engine compartment and had Tom attempt to start the prototype. Instead of the healthy rumble of an engine turning over, there was only a faint electrical hum followed by silence. But in that silence, Sam heard something the others had missed: a tiny clicking sound, almost inaudible, coming from somewhere deep in the engine compartment. "Try it again," Sam said, closing his eyes and focusing entirely on the sound. There it was again. Click, pause, click, pause. Like a relay trying to engage but failing to make connection. Sam straightened up and walked to the other side of the engine compartment. The hybrid system was incredibly complex, with dozens of sensors and control modules communicating with each other through a web of electrical connections. But somewhere in all that complexity was something simply: loose connection, a failed relay, a sensor that had worked its way free. "Tom, you got a schematic of the electrical system?" Sure. Tom pulled up the blueprint on his tablet and handed it to Sam. The schematic was intimidating, hundreds of components connected by lines that looked like abstract art. But Sam had learned to read these diagrams the same way Elena read sheet music, recognizing patterns and relationships that told a story. This relay here, Sam pointed to a small component buried deep in the engine compartment. It controls communication between the hybrid battery system and the main engine management computer. If it's not making proper contact, the computer would think the engine doesn't exist. Tom frowned. We tested that relay. Computer says it's fine. Computer tests electrical continuity, but if the relay housing is cracked or the mounting bracket is loose, it might make contact when it's not under load, but fail when the engine tries to start. Sam reached into his toolbox and pulled out a small flashlight. He squeezed into the tight space around the engine compartment, following the wiring harness to the relay in question. It took 5 minutes of careful searching, but there it was, a hairline crack in the relay housing that would be invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. Found it, Sam called out. Relay housing is cracked. Connection fails under load. I'll be damned, Jerry muttered. How'd you spot that? 30 years of listening to engines complain. Sam carefully removed the cracked relay and examined it under the light. This little $20 part was keeping your $2 million engine from starting. Tom was already on his phone, calling the parts department to find a replacement relay. They've got one in stock. I can have it here in 10 minutes. While they waited for the part, Sam noticed something else. Diagnostic port hidden behind a panel that most people would never think to check. It was an older style connection, the kind used in the prototype's early development phases, but usually removed before final assembly. You know about this port? Sam asked Tom. What port? Tom leaned in for a closer look. I've never seen that before. It's not on any of the schematics. Sam smiled. The port was a remnant from the prototype's development, probably left in place by some engineer who thought it might be useful for future diagnostics. The kind of detail that would be overlooked in the rush to finish the project, but invaluable for troubleshooting problems exactly like this one. If we connect to this port, we can probably get real-time data from the engine management system instead of relying on the standard diagnostic interface. Might help us catch problems before they shut down the whole system. When the replacement relay arrived, Sam installed it carefully, making sure the mounting bracket was secure and the electrical connections were tight. Then he connected his diagnostic equipment to the hidden port and nodded to Tom. Try starting it now. The prototype's engine came to life with a whisper-smooth purr that made everyone in Bay 7 smile. The hybrid system engaged seamlessly, electric motors and gasoline engine working in perfect harmony. All the diagnostic readings were green. All the error codes were cleared. Beautiful, Jerry said, and Sam nodded in agreement. But as Sam was packing up his tools, he noticed they weren't alone. A woman in an expensive business suit stood outside the glass walls of Bay 7, watching them work. She was probably in her late 40s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a professional style and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Even from a distance, Sam could tell she was someone important, the way she stood, the way the other managers deferred to her presence. "Who's that?" Sam asked Tom quietly. "Helena Price, new CEO. She's been here about 6 months, trying to turn the company around." Tom's voice carried a mixture of respect and fear. "Word is she's ruthless, but fair. Saved her last company from bankruptcy by cutting costs and streamlining operations." Helena Price was talking to Dave Chen now, pointing toward the prototype and asking questions. Dave was nodding enthusiastically, probably explaining how the night shift had solved the problem that had stumped the day shift engineers. Sam felt suddenly self-conscious. He'd spent 15 years being invisible, comfortable in his anonymity. Being noticed by the CEO was not necessarily a good thing, especially if she was looking for ways to cut costs and eliminate redundancies. "We should get back to our regular assignments," Sam told Jerry quietly. But as they gathered their tools and prepared to leave Bay 7, Helena Price walked through the door. Up close, she was even more intimidating, not because she was cruel or harsh, but because she radiated the kind of focused intelligence that could see through any pretense or excuse. "Which one of you gentlemen fixed the prototype?" she asked. Tom pointed towards Sam. Sam Rodriguez figured out the problem. $20 relay was keeping the whole system from starting. Helena's eyes focused on Sam with laser intensity. "How long have you been working here, Mr. Rodriguez?" 15 years, ma'am. Night shift maintenance." "And how long did it take you to diagnose the problem?" Sam felt every eye in Bay 7 watching him. Maybe 10 minutes to find the actual problem, another 5 to locate the diagnostic port. "The diagnostic port that's not on any of our schematics?" "Yes, ma'am. Left over from development, I think. Might be useful for future troubleshooting." Helena was quiet for a long moment, studying Sam with an expression he couldn't read. Finally, she nodded to herself, as if she'd made some internal decision. "Mr. Rodriguez, I'd like to speak with you privately. Tomorrow today, actual at 2 p.m. in my office. We have some things to discuss." After Helena left, the other engineers gathered around Sam, full of questions and speculation. But Sam felt a cold knot of anxiety forming in his stomach. In his experience, when the CEO wanted to speak with a night shift maintenance worker privately, it was rarely good news. "What do you think she wants?" Jerry asked as they walked back to their regular assignments. "Probably to make sure I understand my place," Sam replied. "CEOs don't like it when the hired help shows up the engineering department." But even as he said it, Sam couldn't shake the memory of how Helena Price had looked at him not like a maintenance worker who'd overstepped his bounds, but like someone who'd just solved a problem that everyone else had missed. For the first time in 15 years, Sam Rodriguez had been truly seen. Whether that was a blessing or a curse, he'd find out in a few hours. The storm hit Phoenix just after midnight, unusual for October, but fierce enough to rattle the factory's metal walls and send sheets of rain across the parking lot. Sam had been working on a routine maintenance check when the lights flickered and the main power grid shifted to backup generators. These kinds of electrical disturbances always made the sophisticated machinery nervous, and tonight would prove no exception. He was torquing bolts on a transmission housing when the alarm started, a sharp, insistent beeping that meant something had gone seriously wrong in Bay 7. Sam dropped his tools and ran toward the sound, Jerry close behind him. They found Tom Phillips and 2 other day shift engineers standing around the prototype, their faces pale in the harsh fluorescent lighting. "What happened?" Sam asked. "Power surge from the storm," Tom said, his voice tight with panic. "The prototype was running fine after your repair, but when the lightning hit, something in the electrical system overloaded. Now it won't start at all, won't even acknowledge that we're trying to communicate with it." Sam looked at the diagnostic screens surrounding the prototype. Instead of the neat rows of data he'd seen earlier, there was nothing but error messages and system failures. The engine management computer had gone completely dark, as if someone had erased its memory. "How bad is it?" Jerry asked. "Bad." Tom ran his hands through his hair. "The board meeting is at 8 a.m. Helena Price is supposed to demonstrate this prototype to investors who are considering buying the whole company. If we can't get it running..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the factory knew that Phoenix Motors was hanging by a thread. The prototype represented their last chance to prove they could compete in the modern automotive market. Without it, the investors would walk away and the company would be liquidated by Christmas. "Have you called the engineering team?" Sam asked. "They're on their way, should be here within the hour." But Tom's expression suggested he didn't have much faith in their ability to solve the problem quickly. Sam approached the prototype cautiously, like a doctor examining a patient who'd just suffered a stroke. The external systems all appeared normal, no visible damage, no burned components, no obvious signs of electrical failure. But when he tried to access the engine management system through the standard diagnostic port, he got nothing but digital silence. "The hidden port," Sam said suddenly. "The one we used earlier, is it still functional?" Tom pulled out his diagnostic equipment and connected it to the concealed port Sam had discovered. For a moment, There was nothing but static on the screen. Then, slowly, lines of code began scrolling past, not the clean, organized data they'd seen before, but fragments of corrupted information, like pieces of a shattered mirror. "The system's still there," Sam said, studying the readout, "but the power surge scrambled the engine management software. It's like the computer forgot how to talk to the engine." Jerry whistled low. "Can you fix scrambled software?" "Not me. That's way beyond my skill level." Sam looked at Tom. "How long would it take your team to rebuild the engine management program from scratch?" "Days, maybe weeks. We'd have to start from the original development code and rebuild every calibration, every sensor mapping, every operational parameter." Tom's voice was hollow. "We don't have days. We have 6 hours." The situation was becoming clear to everyone in Bay 7. Phoenix Motors' last hope was sitting dead in the water, killed by a random lightning strike at the worst possible moment. In 6 hours, Helena Price would have to face a room full of investors and admit that the company's revolutionary prototype was nothing more than an expensive piece of sculpture. Sam walked around the prototype again, his mind racing through possibilities. The hardware was intact, was sure of that. The problem was purely software, a matter of the engine management computer not knowing how to communicate with the physical systems it was supposed to control. "Tom, do you have the original calibration data, the baseline settings from when the prototype was first assembled?" "Somewhere in the development files, sure, but without the engine management software to interpret it." "What if we bypass the engine management computer entirely?" Sam interrupted. "Run the engine on manual controls until we can get the software rebuilt." Tom stared at him. "You can't run a hybrid system manually. There are too many variables, too many systems that have to coordinate perfectly. The electric motors, the regenerative braking, the battery management system, they all have to work together within millisecond timing. A human being can't possibly." "A human being can't," Sam agreed. "But what about the old backup system?" "What backup system?" Sam pointed to a cluster of components hidden behind the main engine bay. "When they were developing this prototype, they must have had some kind of fail-safe system, a way to run basic engine functions if the main computer failed during testing. Look at these relay boxes. They're not connected to anything now, but I bet they used to control basic engine operations." Tom pulled up the original development schematics on his tablet, scrolling through dozens of technical drawings. "You're right. There's a manual override system that was supposed to be removed before final assembly. Basic engine controls fuel injection, ignition timing, throttle response. But it's completely disconnected from the hybrid systems. What if we reconnect it, just enough to get the engine running for the demonstration? It would be like driving a Ferrari with a lawnmower engine. None of the advanced features would work, no hybrid efficiency, no regenerative braking, no computer-optimized performance. The investors would see right through it." Sam looked around Bay 7 at the faces of the engineers and technicians. These were good people, skilled professionals, who'd spent years developing this prototype. They deserved better than to watch their work die because of a random power surge. "Maybe they don't need to see the advanced features," Sam said quietly. "Maybe they just need to see that the engine runs, that Phoenix Motors can still build something that works." As if summoned by the conversation, Helena Price appeared at the entrance to Bay 7. She was still wearing the business suit from earlier, but now it was rumpled and her hair was slightly disheveled. She'd obviously been awakened by the crisis and rushed back to the factory. "Status report," she said without preamble. Tom explained the situation as concisely as possible: the power surge, the corrupted software, the impossibility of rebuilding the engine management system before the investor meeting. Helena listened without interruption, her face growing more grim with each detail. "Options?" she asked when Tom finished. "We could postpone the meeting, give ourselves a few weeks to rebuild the software properly. The investors fly back to Tokyo tomorrow afternoon. This is our only chance." Helena's voice was flat, controlled. "What else?" Tom glanced at Sam, clearly reluctant to suggest something that might make the situation worse. "Sam thinks we might be able to bypass the engine management system, Run the prototype on manual controls. Helena's sharp eyes focused on Sam. Explain. Sam took a deep breath. The prototype has a backup system that was never removed from development. Basic engine controls that could let us start and run the motor without the main computer. It wouldn't have any of the advanced features, but it would prove that the fundamental engineering is sound. How long would this take? A few hours, maybe until dawn if we run into complications. Helena was quiet for a long moment, weighing options that all seemed to lead to failure. Finally, she nodded. Do it. I'll handle the investors' expectations. Tell them we're demonstrating the core engine technology rather than the complete hybrid system. As Helena left to make phone calls and adjust the morning's presentation, Sam and the engineering team began the delicate process of reconnecting the prototype's backup system.